This episode of Walt Disney World Today is sponsored by MEI and MouseFan Travel. MEI and MouseFan Travel is an authorized Disney vacation planner, specializing in cruises and packages to Disney and other vacation destinations around the world. They provide signature service with no agency fees. Get a no-obligation quote at www.mousefantravel.com. This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Wednesday, May 9th, 2007, and this is episode 254 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm your host, Matt Hodgeberg of MGMstudios.org. On the show today, we have Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Michael.
Something has gone wrong. One by one, the crew has vanished, and somewhere in the ship, a terrifying creature waits to claim its next victim.
It sounds like our trip that I had with Newell to Fort Wilderness. One by one, everyone kept on dropping off the trip until it was just me left.
It says Deliverance. Muppet Aliens.
That would be the alien scene from Great Movie Ride.
Yep.
Also on the show today, we have Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Mike?
You know, I was all set to bring my banjo with me down for that trip, too.
On today's show, we're answering your listener questions. Len is again not here, so we've had some questions lined up for Len, so we're going to start answering them for him.
That's right.
They may not. Well, to the best of our ability, we will try to answer as if Len was really here. First email of the day comes from Ted Goralski of Massapequa Park, Long Island.
Ted.
Where I say, guys, I'm obviously hooked. I'm now coming into my office and waiting for each new episode to be posted. I get in right around 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I get really disappointed if the new show isn't posted yet. It's sad, really. We know you're those type of people, Ted.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it's been a year since my last visit, and my wife and I are really starting to feel the itch. We stayed at French Quarter, the Polynesian, and offsite. Last time we went all out. We went to Animal Kingdom Concierge with the Sunrise Safari, which includes one of the best breakfast buffets I've ever had, by the way, the Epcot Aquaseas tour, and lots more. Since our kids are now 10 and 12, we would like to try to keep things fresh for them. Lately, a lot of their friends have been going to Universal, and the lure of Big Coast is compelling for them. Our family loves animals, so SeaWorld and Discovery Cove also seem like a good fit. Is it time to broaden our horizons, or is this just heresy? We really like that there's so much at Disney, and we still have a lot to explore before the kids get too old. We love being in the Disney bubble. When we stayed offsite, it just wasn't the same. Is it reasonable to do Disney and the other parks on the same trip, or should we try to separate them? Interesting question.
So he wants to either...
He's thinking, he's at a point where he thinks maybe it's time to branch off to Universal or SeaWorld. Here, I'll give you my opinion, Ted. I'll start this off. I think that given what the attendance tendencies and figures are for those parks, especially Universal, it's no surprise that given their attendance figures, it reflects poorly on the type of attractions they have over there. And I think you're going to, A, set yourself up for disappointment, and B, I think your money's better spent at the Disney parks because, of course, if you're a Magic Your Way ticket holder, it becomes cheaper and cheaper the more days you spend in the Disney parks. That's Disney's plan, obviously. So, one, you're saving more money in the long run by going to the Disney parks. And I think, personally, everything you can find over there, you can pretty much find at the Disney parks. I like Disney parks better. I think it's much more engaging. And I would rather give my money to Disney anyway. It comes back in the long run. Since you're obviously a Disney fan, I think it works to your advantage. That's my opinion. I drink the Kool-Aid, clearly. What do you guys think?
Well, in the past, when I've taken my family down there, we didn't go that often. We'd go like every 2 years. So we would do everything. I mean, we would stay on Disney property. We would do Universal Studios. We would do SeaWorld. We would do Medieval Times. We would do all those things, and we just kept everything in perspective. But we spent the majority of our time at the Disney parks because we were more familiar with them. We felt safer there. We felt that they told a better story than the other theme parks. We went to SeaWorld too. We did them all, but if we had to make a choice, the familiarity, the security, the comfort level, just everything just seemed to work out better with with Disney, and Carol made a good observation. She said that when the Disney attractions were built, they seemed to have in mind that if there's a long queue, they want to protect their guests from the hot sun. And I remember that when Universal Studios first opened in Orlando, that some of the attractions had queue lines that were in the sun, and it just didn't hit me that right. It seems like they were short-sighted in some of the attractions. Another just a quick one. They weren't as thorough in their attraction theming as the Disney theme parks. One example, the E.T. ride. I remember going through the E.T. ride and looking up on the ceiling. Now you're going through the forest, but I could see the ceiling. Whereas if you go through Splash Mountain, as you finish through Splash Mountain, you look up at the ceiling. You're looking at leaves. You can't see the ceiling. So that's a big difference that I found.
Yeah, I agree with you right there, Mike. I think you got to stay in the Disney parks. Next email is from Chris from Sterling Heights, Michigan, who writes, "Hi, gentlemen. I've written in before. Thanks for the answer. And continue to love your podcast. I have a question that is killing me. I don't think it has ever been asked. You can feel free to address this live or any way you wish. Years ago when I was working at the Disney Store, we released a CD and VHS called Simply Mad About the Mouse, featuring famous musicians, Billy Joel, Gypsy Kings, LL Cool J, performing songs, and the VHS had them in the music videos. It also aired on the Disney Channel. The CD is available on iTunes, and apparently the VHS can be found on eBay, but as I don't have a VCR hooked up to my main AV setup, I'm looking for it in digital format. I know you guys have heard of this, but do you know anywhere I might be able to obtain a copy? Even YouTube comes up empty. Keep up the great work, and I recently used one of your podcasts in a class that I'm teaching on presentation media. My students loved it."
Cool.
Yeah. I did a search. Again, I found it on eBay, and obviously you can find them on iTunes. If they're not on YouTube, Chris, the way I see it, you could buy the VHS and then get a one of those VHS to DVD recorders, and kind of copy it over there. Yeah, and then you'd have the DVD copy, and then you could rip it and do whatever you need to do with it, whatever you want to do with it. Newell, have you found anything in your semi-gray area downloads?
It's funny. I'm looking on my shelf as we speak to see if I even have that, and if I did, I would, tell her. No, you can't make a copy. That's illegal. I would
archive a copy for yourself, Newell. If it happened to get leaked on the internet, I mean, mistakes happen.
I'm just looking to see. I don't even know. I'll have to dig. If I have it, I'll let you know.
Chris, that would be my best bet. If you don't want to invest in a VHS to DVD recorder, I think there are places you can go, like Hammer stores and things like that, they'll do it for you. They're obviously usually for home videos, people want to save them, but you may be able to swing something there. Next email is from Adam Corbett of Collegeville, Pennsylvania, who writes, "Dear Walt Disney World Today crew, I'm a big fan of your podcast. I would like to forever put to rest the jokes concerning your timely email responses by asking a question about a trip coming up May 2008. My wife and I tried to get this question in. I really tried. We missed it by like 2 days. It's May 5th, 2007. We tried. It's the effort that counts. Anyway, my wife and I are taking our 7-month-old daughter and was wondering what rides would be okay to take her on. I know that the fast rides are definitely out, but how about Small World, Jungle Cruise, and possibly Pirates? I'm only really concerned about noise levels and anything else that I might be thinking of. If you're able to get this before our trip, let this be the end of the jokes. If not, this may be answered by the time the third child comes along. Thanks again."
Did you say 5 months?
7-month-old. At 7 months old, I don't think they even know what's going on. You could bring her on Splash Mountain if they would let her, and she would just be like, "Hey."
I guess, yeah.
They're not that. They don't get that things are happening. I don't think it's 7 months old. I don't think they'll be.
It's gonna be loud though.
It'll be loud. You're right.
I gotta think that there's got to be some kind of a guideline that they give the cast members who man the attractions as to how small an infant they would allow, how small a baby they would allow on any of the attractions.
I would think. I mean, you could bring him on Small World. I think the kid would be fine. I don't think the kid will. Frankly, at 7 months old, the kid's not going to enjoy it because the kid's not going to know what's going on. I don't think most 7 months old. I don't have a tremendous amount of experience at 7 months old, but I really, we've had this conversation, especially Scopa, about bringing kids to the parks. I think to answer, let's leave it at this, Mike. I think you'll agree with me here that you could bring the kid on the attractions like that, I don't think the kid is going to respond terribly to, because I don't personally think the kid is going to know what's going on.
All right, I need to make a statement here. This is one reason why I feel very strongly against this, because you're bringing a child into an attraction, and number one, you're going to be concerned about their safety. Well, I don't know if you can reason with a 7-month-old child, and if that child is hungry, or if he or she has decided that it was time to move their bowels or whatever, and they're kind of cranky, and they're screaming and yelling. No, I'm serious. You're going to be ruining an attraction. If you're in, it's a small world, all of a sudden you hear this baby crying, or if you take her somewhere where you're trying to listen to something and there's a baby crying, I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work in my book. And if I upset people from, because I'm saying this, I'm sorry. But, you have to have consideration for the baby, and you have to have consideration for the other guests as well.
I'm not going to argue with you there, Mike, on it. Let's move on to see what other emails we have in the old email bucket. Julia from Laurel, Maryland, who writes, "Greeting Walt Disney World Today questionnaires. Got a quick question that I don't think I've ever heard covered anywhere. Although my fiance and I are children-free at this point, a lot of our friends are having little ankle biters in the toddler range. We'd love to make a trip down with a large group, but one of the selling points for the trip would be spending the evenings at Pleasure Island. Although we could have people take turns babysitting in the evenings, I was wondering if there were any other options. Does Disney have a service where you could drop the kids off for a few hours of fun in the evening while the parents head out to party? I seem to recall that there was an option on the Disney Cruise Line. Are there reputable and licensed childcare services that would be willing to babysit in hotel rooms at each night? Can you think of any other solutions? Thanks, and of course, love the show."
Where did they say they were staying? Or they did?
They didn't say where they were staying. There is babysitting services, aren't there, Newell?
Yeah, depending on the resort, there's different types and there's different rates for the different resorts. You also have the option of having someone come into the room and watch the little ones. There's one called Fairy Godmothers, another one called Kids Night Out.
Next email.
That's good.
Fairy Godfathers.
Next email is from Sue, who writes, "I purchased a Pal Mickey 2 years ago at the World. You think it will still be relevant on our trip this year, or is he just another pretty face now?" We've answered this sort of question in the past, Sue, and it still works. The functionality that you had when you bought it will still remain there. So if he says something at a certain point on Splash Mountain, he'll still say it there. He just can't do any of the new things the new Pal Mickeys can do. So just be aware of that. But he can still bring in the parks and still tell you the stupid jokes and, do all those little fun things. Next email's from Leanne, who writes, "Hi guys, I really enjoy listening to your podcast as you are entertaining and very informative. My question is this: we were planning a trip to Walt Disney World in March 2008. We'll be staying off-site with a rental car and plan to spend most of our days at the Magic Kingdom since our 5-year-old daughter loves the park the best. Parking at Magic Kingdom is always a pain, as you have to travel on the tram or monorail, etc. to physically get into the entrance. Would it be easier or faster to drive to Epcot Park and then take the monorail to the Magic Kingdom?"
I've done it, and I don't know if it's easier or faster.
I don't think it's.
It can be done, but I don't know about you, Matt. When we got to the Ticket and Transportation Center, you have to switch monorails, so you have to get off and change, and then you're sitting there. You're on another line. You're waiting on a second line.
Yeah, you're right there. No, Epcot is not going to be faster or more convenient. It's only faster or more convenient probably if you're in Epcot to begin with, and then you park hop.
Right.
Then you can just leave your car and save some gas.
Right. It does take quite a while.
Obviously, if you want to avoid the monorail thing, you got two options. One, if you're staying on Disney World Resort, take your bus. Then you avoid it. Brings you right to the front of the park. That's the best option. There's the whole gray zone thing. It's not a secret by any means. I don't think at this point that you can park. Well, you're not allowed to, but you could technically park at one of the one of the Magic Kingdom resorts and either walk or take the monorail.
I thought they gave you a 3-hour pass when you do that.
I don't know how they're handling it now, but it's out there.
This is touchy because last time that I went to Chef Mickey's, not only did they give me a 3-hour pass, but they checked to make sure that my name was on the reservation.
That's right.
Yep.
At the guards booth, they get a master list of who's got reservations, and they checked.
Yeah. So the best option I think is to leave the rental car at your resort if you're staying on Disney World property and take the bus. I think, Mike, Scopa, you always advocate driving your rental car except when you're going to the Magic Kingdom, right?
Although I do. I mean, I drive to the Magic Kingdom, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I know that, it wasn't until only a few years ago that I actually started parking at the Magic Kingdom parking lot, because I used the buses, and years ago I used to park at the Contemporary every single time I went to the Magic Kingdom. I didn't want to park in the parking lot. I didn't want to deal with the monorail or anything, but it's not that bad, depending upon where you park at the Ticket and Transportation Center. If you can figure out a way to get as close as possible to the Ticket and Transportation Center, then you don't have to deal with the trams. The trams are a pain in the neck. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's tough with the boat and the monorail. I prefer the boat over the monorail at night.
Yeah, me too.
Especially, and it's true. And Len also says this. It's just a pain to get to the Magic Kingdom, and you're better off, like you said, if you're on a resort. If you're staying at a resort, to take the bus. But I can tell you that that's not always the case.
Let's move on to our next email from Garrett, who writes, "Hey guys, this is Garrett from Fargo, North Dakota. I've been listening since episode 54, and I finally have a question. I was wondering what types of events the world has going on around Easter, and if so, where I could find a list of them. Thanks in advance." She obviously means Easter 2008.
Obviously.
Obviously. Newell, it would really help if you didn't laugh hysterically when we read these questions. The only thing that goes on really at Easter is I know that at the Magic Kingdom, the Easter Bunny, Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny, are out for meet and greets. Isn't there also an Easter egg hunt somewhere on property?
Not that I know of.
I could have sworn I read about one. Have you guys encountered any other Easter activities in the parks?
Never there at Easter.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I also avoid it. But I know that Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny are at the parks. At the Magic Kingdom, rather, not at the parks. Next email is from Chris.
With the Tooth Fairy.
Chris Little from Orangeville, Ontario, Canada, writes to us and says, "Hi, I'm Matt, Mike, and Len. This August, our family, myself, my wife, and our two kids, 8 and 10, will be making our first visit to Walt Disney World as DVC members. We check in at the Boardwalk Villas on August 19th and check out on August 31st. This will also be our first visit during the summer. We've worked out most of the plans, but we're not sure how to fit in the water parks. We've never been to the water parks at Walt Disney World before. We've been using TorrentPlans.com to work out the best park days, but it doesn't give any advice on the water parks. From our research that we do, we should be arriving before the water parks open, and that both parks have extra magic hours in the morning. Does anyone have a suggestion for the best water park days? I'm assuming that we'll be staying until around lunchtime. I'll also read about the new afternoon water park pass for Florida residents. Will that help with crowds in the morning, or are the water parks mostly filled with on-site guests? Thanks for the great show. You always provide a great Disney fix for my commute."
I think that Len said that, was it the Thursdays? Was it Thursdays that were always the most crowded days at the water parks?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up right now, because of course Len's not here, and so I can't. It'd be nice if we had someone that could say, "Oh."
I'm pretty sure it was Thursdays. And
he says Len says the best day for water parks is Thursday. You are right.
Well, I thought it was the worst part. Go on.
It says Len says the best day for what? I'm reading the show notes from an older episode, and he says that. Let me look back on some other ones. The other thing, I had the idea, and Len seemed to enjoy the idea. He thought it was good. Was combining water parks with Animal Kingdom, going to Animal Kingdom in the morning, and then going to water park in the afternoon, because then you could use that after 4 pass that you mentioned that he mentioned in the email. See, in a different episode, Mike, he says Len says the busiest day is Thursday for both parks, especially in the summer. Len says Saturdays and Sundays are the best days to go to either water parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. That sounds right. So you want to go on Saturdays and or Sundays for the water parks, especially in the summertime.
When it's hot.
I would refer you back to episode 156, where we discuss water parks in depth, and Len really goes to town on there and probably plugs the book a number of times. So hope that answers your question, Chris. Next email is from Jessica from Coplay, Pennsylvania. Go Eagles. Hi guys, love the show, like you never heard that before. I had a few questions I want to ask. I keep forgetting to call during a live show, so here we go. Did Len end up renting a vacation home during Mousefest? I'm dying to know because we're staying in one on our next trip in May, and 2008, and I'd like to hear about what he thought about it. He did rent one. I was there. I visited over there in his vacation home. I think, again, we have to speak for Len because he's a bum and doesn't show up for the shows. I would say that he liked it a lot. I thought it was very nice. Very nice community. He rented from All-Star Vacation Homes. I know that you can find better deals sometimes if you Google a little bit, rent it from other people, but you can't go wrong with All-Star. It's great for the price, especially if you have a large party. And I love the theming they did in the rooms. There was one room, I call it the Mike Scopa room, because it had all Mickey themed in the room. And then you had Winnie the Pooh rooms. Obviously, these are geared towards kids mostly, but they had little touches. Plus, Len loved that they had the unofficial guide on the.
Did they really?
They had it, so Len signed the book on the inside of the book. So he enjoyed that, from what I can gather, Jessica. Jessica writes, and now looking to the trip after that one, I'd like to hear which off-site hotels are your personal favorites, preferably in the $100 to $125 a night range with a reasonable driving distance to parks. Any thoughts? Off-site for $100 to $125 a night. I'm an owner at Orlando Lake Country Club, and you can stay there without being an owner. You can do it per night, and I believe that's in that price range. I love it. I think the amenities are amazing, and I'll post a link in the show notes too there. Although I'm sure you'll get a hard sell for it to stay there, but it won't be. I don't think it's terrible. You guys have any recommendations for?
I haven't stayed at this place, but I've heard a lot of good things. The AmeriSuites, it's called. Mm-hmm. Don't know where exactly it is, but it's pretty close to the property, and I've heard good things. And I think it's actually less than $100 a night, but it's like several. It's a suite, and you get all kinds of amenities that you wouldn't get at a value resort.
Yeah, I stayed at a bunch of different off-site hotels for Len recently, quote-unquote research, and let me tell you. Well, I know why Len gave them to me, because they were not great at all.
How fluffy were the pillows, Matt?
Well, I'll tell you, Jessica, is never stay at a Howard Johnson. They're just terrible. It's really nasty hotels, but that's, of course, way below your price range, so I wouldn't worry about that. Perhaps one of our listeners have a suggestion for the off-site. The other thing I would suggest, Jessica, is looking in the unofficial guide. They have a list of the top 10 off-site hotels, and those are pretty good most of the time. Next email is from Rachel in San Antonio, Texas, who writes, "Hey guys, I was listening to episode 219, the best and the worst months to go, and I thought, let me take it a step further. I am in the same predicament as Mike Newell. We can only go during the summer months due to having school-age children. So, is it better to go at the beginning of June or the end of the summer, around the first week or two of August? This year we're going the last week of July so that we can use our passes, but in 2008 we will have to renew. So, if you had to go in the summer, when would you recommend going? Still loving the show."
Wow.
Scopa?
I've been there June, July, and August. I guess that... Oh, boy, this is tough. I mean, the argument would be either July... I would not go in June. I have found that June was the hottest of the 3 months I've ever been there. July is very crowded, which is a problem for some people. It's very warm, too, of course. There seem to be more things going on in July than in August. The theme parks are at their maximum operating hours, which helps to defray the crowd problem. There always seem to be more things going on in July than in August. In August, right around mid-August, you will begin to see things, I don't want to say shutting down, but they're pulling back, like operating hours. You may not find Spectral Magic or Phantasmic offerings twice a night, although usually that's for extra magic hours, evening hours. August is less crowded because at that point a lot of schools are getting back in session, so you won't have as many families down there from mid-August on. I'd say the first 6 weeks. I'd say maybe mid-August. You may want to second or third week maybe second week in August. I guess I would suggest.
The best thing about August is the last half of the month is it actually begins the value season. Those last 2 weeks of August.
Right.
And if you can do that, although Rachel in her email says I believe she said the first week or the second week in August, which wouldn't be in that. But if you could, that'd be my vote. I mean, I'm trying the first week in June this year because of a Star Wars weekend, so I'm going to go down for that. I'm anticipating the worst. So we'll see.
The only other thing about the last couple of weeks in August is it's hurricane season.
Yeah, well, it's hurricane season in all of those states.
That's a good point, though. That's a good point.
Only for you, Scopa, since you laugh like a little schoolgirl when there's a Category 3 storm rolling through and skip around your resort. All
Wow.
happy.
That's some visual there, you know?
Next email is from Deb from Lowell, Massachusetts, who writes, "Hi, I love the podcast. I have two questions concerning a trip planned in December 2007 for my husband and myself. First, I am very interested in hearing the candlelight processional at Epcot. Would you still recommend the dinner package, or can you enjoy the show from nearby without sitting through it?" They really don't let you gather around the theater, like if you're not in there. You know, like just they don't allow you to really just hang around. I would suggest. I love the dinner package there. I've done it now, I think 2 years in a row. I find it's peace of mind, and you always get a decent view. And I just like knowing that I'm guaranteed a seat, and I'm going to eat it at Epcot anyway. I would recommend the dinner package, guys. Do you have any?
I agree, Matt. I agree. The thing is that time is so valuable down there, and I know I value my time, and it's worth paying a little bit more. You're going to eat anyways that day, so you might as well get the package. You know that you will be able to see the show that you want to see at a certain day, at a certain time, and you'll be able to sit down, and it's just not as enjoyable if you're way in the back, walking by the Gardens Theater. You really need to be sitting down and watching it, because you really won't take it all in as well if you're not sitting down. I think it's well worth it. Mike?
No? Do you have anything to add?
I've never been.
You've only heard the Mike Scopa candlelight.
I have. That's true. And you know what? Add that to my list from episode 250. Things I've never done.
Yes, Monday's episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never done it.
Really? Well,
yeah.
If you've heard Scopas, you've heard them all. I mean, really, can't argue with that. Deb has a quick second question. We were planning, and this is probably a good question for Mike Scopa. We're planning on attending Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. Can I book a dinner at Crystal Palace for a time so that we'll already be in the park when the party actually starts?
Yes, but what you have to do is you have to have your ticket in hand. So the first thing you need to do is you need to order your Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party ticket. You need to have that in your hands, or at least be listed as a guest who has that ticket for that particular night. Once you have that, that's half the battle. But you still have to be within that 180-day mark to make the reservation. And I know that for a fact because one of my friends just bought his Mickey's Very Merry Christmas ticket, and he tried to make reservations at the Liberty Tree Tavern, and they said, nope, got to be within 180 days.
One last email comes from Keith, who writes, Matt, I was listening on today's show, and I thought I would share this tip. If you're staying on property, go to the concierge desk at the hotel. If they aren't busy, they can go online and print your online check-in for you. I brought my laptop with me a couple of trips ago, and I was stuck for a printer. I went to the concierge desk and asked them if they had a printer, and they said not one that I could use, but told me that they could do my online check-in for me for the airline, and the cast member printed out my documents for me. I'm not sure if this works at all the hotels, but it worked for me at the Contemporary and the Grand Floridian. This is probably great for people who are on Southwest, where it really matters, and you really don't want to wait to get to the airport and then learn you're in Section C, and that you're going to be stuck in the middle seat in row 36 next to, Lou Mangello. I mean, then you just know that it's just a bad day for you on that flight back.
It'll be a long flight home.
Oh, Lou.
They'll be telling you, oh, did I see you? Have you seen my book? My kids are on it. Look, all of them. Here it is. He doesn't bring photos of his kids. He just has books with them, and he brings his kids on there. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Walt Disney World Today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, you can visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions at wdwtoday.com. For Mike Scopa, Len Testa, and Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hodgeberg. We'll see you on the next show.
This episode of Walt Disney World Today is sponsored by MEI and MouseFan Travel. MEI and MouseFan Travel is an authorized Disney vacation planner, specializing in cruises and packages to Disney and other vacation destinations around the world. They provide signature service with no agency fees. Get a no-obligation quote at www.mousefantravel.com.
Tell Washington, lower the Internet radio royalty rate. SaveNetRadio.org.